I know. Bernie already told Trump never tweet. Boo! Come on, Bernie, you have a better zinger in you somewhere. Anyway, the past 2 weeks were pretty rough on me, because I worked 15 days in a row between both news stations, smack dab in the middle of both the RNC and the DNC. Oh my god. I was on a veritable roller coaster of emotions for several reasons. However, it was very interesting to see, especially because I have been caught up in this 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week news cycle we are currently in. I wrote this video out having watched both Trump and Clinton's final speeches of the convention, the major wrap-up of what the conventions mean, if you will. But I mean, I really sat down and watched them, front to back, in their entirety. I was picking up on tone, audience reaction, candidate sincerity, so this analysis is going to be about how Republicans and Democrats are feeling right now, and why I think Trump-Sanders is the perfect thing to advocate for as we stretch into November. I'd like to point out here that this is not an endorsement, this is just me doing my thing on YouTube, which is examining both sides of any issue, which people seem to really like. I thought Donald Trump made a really impassioned speech that spoke to Americans who really do want to listen to him, even though he did stretch on a bit too long. The only time I felt his speech went dark, as the media has been quoting it, was when he was talking about real issues plaguing the country, which is like debt, terrorism at home, poverty, racial tensions, wars, like, you know, the list goes on. We are really in the shit right now. But it doesn't mean these problems aren't salvageable, and that's where I felt Trump's speech really shined through. He really does want to make America great again, and this is the way that he's going to do it, but he wants to hit the problems at home first, which for him and his business background is the economy. Trump's ego did kind of blow it for me when he said this, though.
Nobody knows the system better than me. Which is why I alone can fix it.
And I get that that pissed people off. It was the lowest part in his speech. But I took away from it that it was kind of a nod like, yeah guys, I've done some really shady shit in my time too. But a bullshitter of my caliber can recognize the creme de la creme of bullshit, which is Hillary Clinton. In my opinion, Trump's entire campaign seems to come from a place where everybody that the Democrats are also fighting so hard for, everybody will have a voice in Trump's America. And it's strange to me that the liberal narrative pushes back against people who come out as a gay Republican or a black Republican. These are no-nos to them. Trump is an egomaniac. But from the tone of his speech, I do believe he really truly loves this country, and this is just how he's gonna fix it. Over to the Hillary side of things. She looked presidential. Her speech was at times very sharp and focused. I think her entrance into the convention hall went on a bit too long, but it gave enough pause for the whole entire world to see a woman standing on stage. That is a historic event, and that's, you know, it's stupid to not acknowledge that. But it went on just a smidge too long. Her speech did bore me at times because while she was poised and articulate, she seemed a bit fearful. There were very dark moments in her speech as well. I felt like the entirety of the DNC, especially Clinton's speech, was painting sort of an apocalyptic world should Trump be elected. She didn't use those specific words, but that word did come up in one of the DNC speakers. I think the liberal mindset that she did get across was that America is very diverse, and when the chips are down, we will be there to help everybody up. I agree with her sentiment, but I got the feeling that she cannot stand the fact that Trump is rocking the boat on her route to this utopia. She didn't even accept the nomination until 20 minutes into her speech, when it was one of the first things that Trump did. And at one point, she flat out says this:
"Don't believe anyone who says, I alone can fix it."
And I don't know about you guys, but I would rather listen to someone who knows what he's talking about in some respects rather than a candidate who is telling me don't listen to this certain individual. Like, excuse me, Mrs. Clinton, I will listen to whoever I think is most genuine, and it is not you. Now, why is it that I advocate Trump-Sanders 2016? Here, I'll tell you why. Trump appeals to my sense of nationalism and patriotism that I hold very dear to me, because I am a very big enforcer of the Constitution. I think America is one of the greatest nations in the entire world, especially because of its autonomous nature. We are an extremely wealthy country, however, we still reach out and help those globally who are in dire need. And those are two important extremes to note. I love the idea of a free market and the exchange of wealth for goods and services, and I believe Trump loves that too. He really does want to return America to the land of the free market. He does this at the expense of being a blowhard jackass at times, but I can look past that to see where his heart is at. Bernie Sanders appeals to the cerebral side of me because I like to think about where people came from and what their stories are and where they got to that led them to where they are today. Sanders, I believe, in his heart really wants to help the people who are crying out so much for help and need a strong hand to guide them in the right direction. Bernie was one of the few candidates who was actually willing to sit down and talk to a group that has been crying out for help, namely the Black Lives Matter members. And they in turn shut down one of his speeches, which I think was weird, and it's probably something for another video at another time. Democratic values are about helping everybody, even the smallest voice that is crying out for help, because as Americans, they have the right to do that. And I think here a conservative mindset would agree with that sentiment, but also counter with, yeah, but some of these voices that are popping up aren't saying the greatest things, and they're kind of bumming everybody out, so maybe we can address that. That's my sentiment anyway. I think Trump and Sanders honestly have a kind of unspoken respect for one another. And if you look at their stances, you'll see that they have been very, very big on one major issue, which is trade. Bernie wrote an op-ed for the Times back on June 28, 2016, titled "Democrats Need to Wake Up," which talked about the dangers of global trade deals as Hillary sees them. That aligns with Trump's stance on TPP as well. Plus, do you remember all the times that Trump said Bernie was getting gypped by the system, the rigged system? I mean, look what the DNC leak showed us. Both Trump and Sanders bring something new to the table, which media outlets take notice of. Media outlets were shocked that Trump was speaking about inner cities and the LGBTQ community in his convention speech. Bernie was also receiving tremendous support, as evidenced by the people who walked out of the convention the first day and booed every single time Clinton's name was brought up. The DNC started very fractured and tried to repair along the way. It just didn't quite get there. And unfortunately, all of that fire that Bernie lit under people's asses unfortunately fizzled out when he endorsed Hillary. But from the look on his face when she thanked him, I mean, looks don't lie and neither do my hips. And that is a stink eye if I ever saw one. It may actually top Bernie's side eye. No, nothing tops Bernie's side eye. But isn't it funny that after the Bernie stink eye, people were comparing him to Trump's equally dorky faces? But we were supposed to be grossed out by one and see the other as an epic win. The collective brick that would have been shat had Trump picked Sanders as his VP would have really rocked America to its core, I think. Unfortunately, I think we're in an election climate that is not quite ready for something like that, because we're a bit too hung up on the labels of Democrat and Republican right now. I am leaning towards Trump, but I do have Gary Johnson on my radar too, and I have been reading his positions. And if he makes it into the debates, I will give him a second look, for sure. But this Trump-Sanders endorsement goes beyond political leanings for me. I've always liked listening to other people's stories and just trying to understand their mindsets. We're in a climate where journalists are telling us don't believe anything that comes out of this guy's mouth or don't read anything, because if you do actually listen, you're hearing something new and fresh. There was kind of a phoniness and a glamour associated with the DNC, I thought, and it came down to half the seats being empty. There were inappropriately timed chants during Clinton's speech, and then they were just playing soundbite after soundbite of the worst of Trump. That to me seemed like more of a diversion, that Hillary's not really saying anything that can actually help right now. We're gonna see the same government that we've seen the past 8 years, and frankly, I don't want to vote for a candidate who's going to put her faith in a government to fix problems that the government created. I can't do that. But I think the media is kind of diverting away from these problems, as it is unfortunately known to do. Sorry, guys. I will say that the Obamas, as expected, gave wonderful speeches and they looked positively elegant while doing it. However, the Obamas' names are not on the ticket. Hillary's is. My trust in her is just completely lost. And something to never Trumpers. You know that bile that just rises in your throat whenever you think of a Trump presidency? That's the exact same kind of bile I feel when I think of Hillary's America. And here's a funny little note that I think is kind of silly. You know how during the DNC everybody started saying this one phrase over and over again, like, love Trump's hate. Love Trump's hate, everybody. I thought, what if it was kind of like a little endorsement for Trump, for anybody that could see past Hillary's bullshit? Because, let me clarify, Trump, I think, speaks in hyperbole, and everything that people are touting as his hate speech is not hate speech, it's just saying things that spark a conversation. So what if all these little comments were saying, love Trump's hate. Gotta love Trump's hate because it's making me kind of want to vote for him. Let me be honest and frank here. What Trump has said recently is not hate speech. If you want hate speech, I could tell you some stories about the people who call into the national desk every single day and say the craziest fucking things you would ever hear. Oh, because that's hate speech. What Trump is saying is not hate speech, it's just hyperbole. Oh dear, I'm not gonna reveal any of these stories, but just believe me. If I can Trump for a second, just believe me. That's hate speech. Trump ain't no hate speech. And I'll leave it at that. Because in the end, guys, your opinion, your choice, you got your right to vote. You can vote for whoever you want. You don't have to take anything from me. Just, respect somebody's choice if they're able to articulate it. Not just like, well, she's a woman, or he's a businessman, you know what I mean? Okay, so anyway, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you for who you are. Keep on chatting. Let's keep on spreading this video around if you want to. I'm getting better on the schedule, so stay tuned. We got some things in the works. Okay. Take care, bitches. Corey confessed, Rachel and I are falling for each other. Oh, what in the world? Sadie, I know. That was her cue to fucking exit.